I'm 10 years in quality, 5 years plus in test automation, and lately, as I'm working in small startup, I'm doing everything. So I'm like developer, bit of DevOps, working with deployment and observability concepts. So I'm DevOps, whatever guy, and I really like this kind of multi-hat personalities that I have. And I'm a big fan of serverless in later stages. And in free time, I enjoy climbing, which is totally sucks if you live in Amsterdam, in a totally flat country. So I'm going to Ardennes and Alps all the time, and I like Belgian beer. Too much sometimes. Delirium still have some influence on my speech, let's say. Okay, move on. So what's wrong about Selenium? The question that I already heard is nothing wrong with Selenium. Selenium is like 15 years of history, lots of contributors, lots of open source different projects like Nightwatch and WebDriver IO and stuff. So I'm not advocating against Selenium. I just want to show you guys what else is available for the choice. When I joined my recent company, I was selecting where to go, like which way to go, and we have a lot of JS code base and JS developers. So okay, let's see what kind of available on JS market for the test automation, except Selenium. So this is like 3 choices that I had back then. The Puppeteer, do you guys know about Puppeteer? Use it? Okay. I think that is great tool, but it's not test automation tool, it's browser automation tool. So it's good for like making kind of spies and crawlers and stuff like that. It's done by Google guys to test Chrome itself. So yeah, very powerful, but not very easy to use, let's say. The second one is Test Cafe. Someone use Test Cafe? Okay, not so much. It used to be very kind of big and commercial framework. They open sourced it also recently. It's done by developers and quality automation engineers for quality automation engineers. So it contains a lot of QA-oriented topics and QA-related kind of things that might narrow choices that you can have. And the last one is Cypress. Back then it was like 0.2 version or something, so I made really a bet to go with it, and I really don't regret for now. So what Cypress is a test automation framework, JavaScript. You can also write TypeScript, of course. It's an Electron runner and debugger application bundled, and also it's a SaaS platform for balancing and test recording. So it's kind of thing in itself. For later, you have to pay a bit if you want to use it on a scale, but for a free open source project it's free, and you don't need to worry about your Selenium grid cluster and stuff like that. So it's all balanced on the SaaS side. Why Cypress? For me, I was like one QA guy in the company, and in my previous company I also was one QA guy and 80 developers, and I wanted to scale. I wanted not only be a bottleneck, so whether I was choosing the framework or the tool or whatever choices I do in my professional career, I think about who's going to use it, and most of the cases it's going to be developers, so it should be developer friendly. That is decision number 1 that I made. And second one, in Cypress you can go up and down and test pyramids, so you can write a unit test, API integration test, and end-to-end test in one tool or one framework. So you don't need to maintain multiple code bases or multiple paradigms when you switch. So what's endeavor-oriented kind of, why I think it's dev-oriented? It contains a lot of tools already bundled, already pre-packaged. So Cypress tests are basically Mocha tests, so very familiar syntaxes for everyone, with chai assertions, with lots of other like libraries that very common in the JavaScript landscape. It contains already reporters out of the box with multiple tools supported, like JUnit reporter, Mocha reporter, CLI reporter, JSON, whatever. So you can plug it into your reporting tools or portals to get information about your test runs. It's extendable like plugins, so I know that guys were complaining that we don't have Gherkin bindings or Cucumber bindings for for Cypress. So someone wrote a plugin that now you can use the Gherkin language for tests. You can add your stuff there. It's very easy to set up for your project. It's CI ready, so by that I mean that we have around 20 plus examples for almost all of the CI tools to integrate Cypress with. It's either like GitLab, Drone, Cloud CI, or Circle CI, or Travis. It has extended debugging capabilities. You can inspect your test really well because your test is basically running inside of your browser. So you have access to everything inside of the DOM, inside of the browser. Spice, stubs, and clocks. So if you want to mock your function for unit tests, you use Spice or stubs. If you want to control the time, and you can control the time in Cypress, for example, you have like annoying 4 seconds spinner when user waiting for something to happen. In tests, if you have like more than 100 tests, it's already like 400 seconds that your test run is just delayed. So with the Cypress, you can control the time and say, okay, now plus 4 seconds, and this will be carried on in the browser and in the test. So you can control the time, you can fast forward for this kind of animation purposes. And it contains automatic waits. So in Selenium, you have to assert if element is present, if not present, wait. So it's kind of a lot of synchronous code. In Cypress, waits are implicit. So if you do any kind of action on element, it will wait for default timeout for this element to be present on the page. And that's why there is no like stale element exceptions as you have in Selenium. So less flakiness in this way. So talking about different layers, unit integration and end-to-end layers, go a little bit in depth there. So this how the test looked like. As I said, Mocha syntax. You describe your test case. Before each of test execution, you visit the page. You visit index.html. Then you start a server, the mock server, and you say that for any request that application will try to make for this route, post request, I will return to 100%, and you make alias as upload function. Then you prepare your test file because you want to, let's say, test a file upload, and on file upload element, you trigger change with this file, and then you just validate that the route was called. So in this way, you kind of making start backend calls. For API tests or end-to-end tests, you can either go through UI completely. So in this case, the example is a user who is not authorized try to visit the dashboard page, and we want to validate that unauthorized users should be redirected to other page with, in this case, text containing you are not logged in, and the URL should have unauthorized. So this is example number 1, when you actually hitting the web page, visiting, loading everything, rendering everything, and checking that you will be redirected. So it's kind of slow and be fragile because it's asserting on the text on the page. So you can do it's in the API level, so you can execute the request. So CI request is API call without loading anything. You just executing call to the dashboard page. Then you expect that response will be 302, so unauthorized, and you also expect that URL will contain unauthorized. So you have 2 options: either go through completely UI or go through API. And I do a lot of API parts in my test for seeding, like user login, authorization, preparing some test data and stuff like that. And last, it's end-to-end tests. Here I will show some demo. So we organized everything that we have on our web pages in page objects. So you have selectors on the page. You have methods that you can do on the page, like login, register, do something. So it's bundled in page objects. Then we split our user flow in parts. So we have user registering, user login, user making offer, user applying for this offer, and using signing in. So this is subflows that contains pages inside. and the big flow is grouping everything. I came with this idea because I didn't want to make code duplication, and I wanted to have tests very like short, simple, instead of repeating everything. Like every time I log in or every time I create a user, I want to have it in test like explicit or implicit. So I kind of over abstract shit out of my test framework, and I didn't like it now because it grew out of proportion. We were 5 developers when I joined, and now it's 30, and I will show you on example how it looked like. Can you see on the back? So, okay, maybe I should move to Zen mode. Anyway, this is a test. So first I prepare lots of test data that will control the test execution. So I say, okay, this is user parameters, different user parameters, arguments. Then before execution of the test, I load all of the data, and then I run everything. So when this test fails, and you have to debug it as a developer, you're going to come to me and say, Pavel, I hate you. And you will be right, because it's completely not clear what happens, right? So the test fails, and then we open it first. Okay, you have this flow, and then you go inside of the flow, and there is another nested things, and you go there as okay, again another something nested, and finally you arrive at the point when there is an assertion. So assertions were also outside of the test. Anti-pattern, I think this gentleman asked me, what you should not do, you should not make assertions outside of your test, I think. So this is not clear, not good, at least for me. And this is how we're doing it right now. So tests are quite long, quite explicit. So you can see on every page what you're doing. So it's easier to debug if it fails. It's very long, it's like 100 lines and stuff, so it's a lot of code duplication, but sometimes it's okay to make it if you want to increase readability of the test. So yeah, that's kind of how we do it in New 10, and a few of my suggestions to you guys. Cypress, of course, have some trade-offs. It's not a silver bullet whatsoever. So first trade-off, and number one, the biggest one for most of the people, it's only Chrome browser. So you cannot test multi-browsers. You cannot test Firefox or Internet Explorer or Safari with the Cypress. Lately, in the last few years, browsers go closer and closer in APIs to each other. So I kind of trust that in 95% of cases, it's going to be the same. So, and the other 5% of cases, yeah, it will be different, but then you can also get it from your monitoring, login, or users. So it's only Chrome. Its test automation tool is not Swiss Army knife, so don't use Cypress for, as a lot of people use Puppeteer for like scrolling, scanning. It's not an API tool as well, so you cannot replace all of the API testing with Cypress. And of course, it's not a performance testing tool. It runs in single browser on the single tab. So you have to, if you have messaging applications that, like I don't know, Facebook or whatever, when you have user A, user B talking with each other inside of one test, this will not be possible. So you cannot make multi-user tests in Cypress. And it works on the same super domain pages inside of scope of one test. So in one test, you can use star.google.com, but you can use star.google.com and star.facebook.com. So you cannot visit super domains in one test. So yeah, strategies, common strategies with Cypress. You have to define you want to stop backend or not stop backend. You want to test completely from end to end, or you can use it. You can use the API tests. What I do, I have few smoke tests which are completely end to end, not mocked, not stopped, and rest I stopped out or mocked out. Tests are deterministic, means that you never should have the casing or conditions in your test. It means that you don't know what you're doing if you expecting, in some cases, element A or element B present. That means that you do not control your application state, and Cypress allow you to control application state completely. Tests should be independent, so you should not create a test that first log in and then another test is that do something on the page. So because if first test fails, second will fail because user is not logged in. So tests supposed to be completely independent from each other. Cypress doesn't have XPath locators capability. So for someone it's bad, for me it's okay. I never liked XPath, and I think no one likes. You shouldn't test third parties, as you don't control third parties. So again, example of login page. If you log in with Facebook, don't go and test how the Facebook works. Just mock it out or stop it out. And it's fine to have multiple assertions in one test. So it's fine to visit the page and check everything in the page. You don't need to, as an unit test, have granular tests per assertion. It's all right. It's kind of also saving time. So that's test strategies, and as I said, in past year was testing dev room. Now it's testing dev room. It's not present, so I have to say it from face of all of the testers. Guys, whatever you do, whatever you choose, whatever framework you choose, just go and write tests. Testing is great. It gives you confidence in your code. It gives you confidence when you refactor stuff. So just write tests. That's it. Okay, question time. Well, really. We have only 2 microphones.
Yeah, so for my company, I've been doing some Cypress tests. We're quite new at doing Cypress tests, so basically we started from nothing. But what I noticed was kind of a problem is that when you decide not to stop and you want to do end-to-end testing, you run into problems when, for example, you need to check whether a file has been downloaded or you want to upload a file. Yeah. That really breaks everything, because if you download something, for example, you go out of the DOM, so Cypress gets super confused. I was wondering, maybe you have some solutions for that, or...
But you're checking that file is actually downloaded on the backend side, right?
Yeah.
So you're doing
API, or for example,
if
you have something in the backend that changes something in the UI, but as well downloads something that like breaks the code completely.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I was wondering, maybe you have a solution for that?
Yeah. For this kind of cases, I try to use Cypress exec, so you can execute some kind of npm node functions outside of Cypress, so outside of the browser. So then you can do all of this like backend checks and things like that. So it might help, but yeah, don't trust backend, you know. Don't trust anyone. Yeah, I'm QA. I shouldn't trust. So more questions? Yeah.
Hey, when do you usually run your end-to-end test? Is it like on stage server, on production, while development, or on
all
CI?
the time?
All the time,
yeah.
everywhere. Right?
So we run it on deploys, we run it on commits, we run it on push requests, on merge requests.
Okay.
So all the time.
And you received all the time you receive the same result, and it should be the same result, right? Like on stage server, it should.
Yeah,
be
unless it's broken.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Microphone down. Thank you.
How long do your tests run?
How long?
Yes.
If you put it sequentially, I think it's around 10 hours. If you run it in parallel, it's 8 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we had the problem really with running tests, and before the Cypress implemented this parallel on the dashboard, we have to make all sorts of like our parallelization and splitting. So we build our like dispatcher. So you put set of tests, and it creates like Docker Swarm instances, and then on each instance you try to run the test and stuff. But yeah, it's easier with the Cypress dashboard. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Can you please take a photo of us and then everybody?
Sure.
If you don't want a photo, that's fine. Just hide your face if
Okay.
you don't want to be with us.
Yeah, it's hard to put everybody on the photo. I will try, guys.
That's a good problem.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Cheers. Works. Yeah. Make 3.
Thanks.
Okay. No more questions? Ah, one more.
You need a microphone. Just for the video.
Oh yeah, because if questions are not in microphone, the people who are watching it cannot hear. Yeah.
Do you have a generator for those tests?
No,
No.
no, it's really man-written, you know. So
Okay.
this kind of-
Is it planned or?
Yeah.
Yes.
If we want to know what we test, and we want to make sure that it's not automatically checking all of the things on the page or something.
Okay.
All right. No more questions?
We still have time, so don't be shy. Microphone arriving.
Yes, hello. In your integration test example, you showed some promise execution, and basically there was some magic happening. I think that it waited until the end. Do you know a bit more about those? Because in my other frameworks, I still had to be very explicit about when I'm downloading stuff and so on.
Yeah. So in Cypress, the code looks like synchronous, but it's asynchronous. So they implemented their own version of promises, which
Okay.
magic. Yeah. Sometimes it's debugging hell magic, but in most of the cases, like 99% is fine. So yeah, you don't have async awaits inside of your test much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
My question is, what kind of application can you test with Cypress? Like just a web page application?
So I know that people test web pages. I know that people test Chrome plugins.
Or like
extensions.
applications that use Electron or Node WebKit?
Yeah, everything that runs inside of the Chrome, pretty much.
Because Cypress is kind of Electron application on itself.
The runner is Electron application, and I forgot to show it. Good point. So this is a Cypress runner. So it shows you all of the test sets, and it shows you execution of the test. So, for example, I'm going to run one test now. I hope I'm not on Wi-Fi. No, I'm. So here I'm doing the API call to seed up the user, and after that, if Wi-Fi will be a bit faster, I will show you the test runs. But this is just rendering. This is just rendering what happens inside of the driver server, Cypress driver server. What I like also in this kind of application, when you're debugging tests, when you're writing tests, you can go back in history, and you can expect elements and DOM of the past. You know, so you can see what happens, you can see what's missed. You can see some logs during the test run. So this kind of nice thing for me. Can also debug tests here. So you basically inside of the test you can put in between like debug, and then it will stop there, and you will have full access to the browser state at this moment. So
But everything is run within the browser.
Everything runs within the browser. So when you run in test on CI, it's what it does. It's boot up the Docker image. Well, you run inside of the Docker image, let's say. So it's run it. Then it's run the Chromium or Electron actually. Yeah. So it's kind of heavy in this sense. So the Cypress minimalistic image is around 400 megabytes. And if you record video of the test, so you have options of just recording the screenshots of the failures or the whole video of test run. If it record video of the test, it boots also the window manager, XVVM, FMMPEG, so it's like really heavy, you know, so it can be a bit slow. So I would not suggest to, at least on CI, work with videos.
But if you are making yourself an Electron application or
Yeah.
Node WebKit, can you run Cypress within the same application?
Yeah. That's all.